This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis program. Now, Musa Abatoy in Kumasi says that the authorities over the years have failed us. As I speak, inside Kumasi Abatoy, we have a gas station, a total filling station. It's just opposite with a Goil station 2 meters away and another fuel station also 2 meters away from Goil station. I'm aware of the place he's talking about. I can picture that area right now. Government must quickly do something about it. We can't afford to jeopardize precious lives anymore. Government must act now. Hashtag. But like you heard, I mean, elsewhere where regulations work and sanctions work, the filling stations are actually built under homes. Michael Amening says that President Akufo-Addo sworn by the Constitution. Okay, he swore by the Constitution, that's what you mean, to protect all Ghanaians. So anyone like Mahama Ayarga, who is of the view that government's ban for the construction of new petrol and gas stations is unconventional, can go to court to seek redress. If the MPA can shut down 21 gas stations just after the atomic junction gas explosion, then clearly our state institutions like MPA, EPA, Standard Authority, city and town and country planning, etc., have totally failed in discharging their constitutional mandates. I think you're right about that, and many agree with you. Those who give the permits, where normally are they? McDonald Bruce says that for the first time, I agree with Honorable Ayarega that legal action should be taken against owners of filling stations whose negligence have caused damage to some citizens of Ghana. Commercial drivers should also desist from loading their vehicles to full capacity before going to filling stations to fill their tanks. While passengers are in the vehicle, okay, it's also dangerous, right? I actually drove to a filling station in the course of last week to buy fuel, and the tanker was sitting right there ready to discharge. I'm just learning that all of these things are wrong.
Something just came through. Apparently, there's a case pending before the Supreme Court now, seeking to evict the GPRT from operating in that station. The claim is that the operation there is also illegal.
Yes. Okay.
So there's a case pending in the Supreme Court as we speak.
Right.
So there are interesting
JB from Insawam says these gas explosions are not the problem. The problem is our attitude about the problem as a country. The talk is too much. Beautiful words don't put porridge in the pot. I rest my case. Hashtag enforce the law. John Wellman in Pokwasi says, nowhere in the developed world would one see a gas filling station more so near or in residential areas. You're not right about that, really. This is because domestic gas for cooking and heating is metered directly to homes. All right. So far, not much has been advocated in that direction with the requisite law enactment. Gas cylinder could be widened to manage the transition from the current situation of the porting gas to direct home delivery. This is our time to think big and act decisively. Anything short of this audacious idea, I am afraid, won't last the test of time. I pray that government seriously cracks the whip at our public servants to serve Mother Ghana instead of politicians, political parties, and people who act with impunity. So, right, we agree with you. You are so spot on with that. Kofi Atta in Cambridge says, the problems facing Ghana as a nation are not lack of this or that, not corruption, not poverty. The main problem is the inability and or the unwillingness of the authorities to enforce the laws, rules, and regulations, coupled with the inability and or the unwillingness of the citizenry to comply with such laws, rules, and regulations, enforce the laws, rules, and regulations to the latter, and the quantitative and qualitative changes would be there for all to see. Dr. Yao Trefo says that, is it Trefo or Trefo? Says that, help me? Trefo says that the president's commandments, the president's 9 commandments might not work. What the country needs is to pass the bill on occupational health and safety. This will curb all these nuisances, not just the filling stations, but every corner of Ghana. Okay, so someone else is sending from Ohio, Cincinnati, but I don't have your name, so go ahead and read there. Spike in Ohio. Okay, Spike. Spike says, there we go again. 24 million petrol and gas experts, all prescribing solutions to this animal called gas explosion. Bottom line is laws do not work, and not until the laws are strictly enforced, I'm afraid this situation will be difficult to correct. Okay. I've heard many of you repeat what A says, that we have beautiful laws, but we simply don't enforce. Okay. And that is our problem. Right. Now, to the next question, which is the bigger issue, another bigger issue that we are looking at, because as far as some are concerned, a king that we are proud of, and we like to call him king, not chief, right? That we are so proud of because of the many things that he does and the prestige that he brings to Ghana as the country, and even Africa to some extent. The words that proceed from his mouth, a lot of wisdom. But people are saying, where did that wisdom go? When in 2016, he had to give 350,000 pounds sterling to a banker to deposit, apparently against some rules, and which has now brought him to criticism over suspicions of terror. Is it laundering, money laundering? Right. I'll go to the details. You already know them. So, who do I start with on the table on this issue? Ace. What do you find? Indiscretion, and I ask the question, look, Asante Hene obviously has money. He's got money. So 350,000 pounds. How much is that to the Asante Hene? So what's the big deal?
Well, let me make a few caveats. The issues under English law, I'm not qualified or licensed to speak on issues of English law.
I don't trust that.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not qualified, but I will speak about this in a certain sense and focus. What if this had happened in Ghana? Please, who do you call if you want to bank your money than your banker? Banking has ceased to be a place you go to. It is something you do. And so several people will call their banks, I want to deposit money. And they would send a relationship officer or somebody to come in and take the money. I cannot speak to the facts of it because I don't know have all of these details. And so if a person with money calls the banker and says, I want this money in the bank and I want this to happen to it, guess what? There's the luxury of doing transactions from your own home. You can do it on the net or you can do it in the banking. I'll tell you a story. I didn't know. I gave a check to my daughter elsewhere. And before my eyes, she took the check, took her phone, stop apps, boom. In a few minutes, the money was in her account, but the check was still in her hands. The world has moved on. Now, because the world has moved on, certain things have started. One is this whole money laundering thing. I don't think you have time for me to go into the history of money laundering and what it means. But it doesn't mean that money laundering has happened. The anti-money laundering laws are to prevent it from happening. And so what they put in place is a regime that reports what they call suspicious and unusual activity. Now, it went on in the world for a long time. Now, the 1988 Vienna Convention on these, Ghana was at the table when this convention was being put together. And we subsequently passed the Anti-Money Laundering Act. Right. So let's assume this had taken place in Ghana. You, Samson, had called your banker to pick cash from you and put in your account with an instruction for an onward transfer. What the banker doesn't tell you is that I am actually going to report you. And people, let's wake up. I want to tell you this. There was a time when banking secrecy was key. Guys, those days are gone. In the previous Banking Act, it was about 3 subsections that gave you the secrecy, and then there were 3 exceptions. Now there are about 30 exceptions in the new Banks and Specialized Deposit Taking Institutions Act 2016, Act 930.
30 exceptions.
There are about 30 exceptions that if the Bank of Ghana is carrying out its duties, it can take it out. GRA takes it over. The Financial Intelligence Center established under the Anti-Money Laundering Act takes it up. The Collateral Registry, the Credit Reporting Act, the Ghana Deposit Protection Act, the Securities and Exchange Commission. There are at least 30 exceptions to banking confidentiality. Now, the rules on what they call, and in Ghana, we passed the act, we also passed what is called the Anti-Money Laundering Regulations. And it puts a duty on what they call accountable or accounting institutions.
Right.
And guess what? It includes lawyers. So actually, if your client comes before you and brings up an issue about the transaction, and you begin to suspect it, you must file a report. And the issue about suspicious and unusual
accountable institutions were just the banks. So.
Oh no. Can I
happened to a client once, and I just limited it to the banks.
Yes, we know it is the banks who have been. Accountable institutions include. This is the first schedule. An entity business. B, auctioneers. 3 or C, lawyers, notaries, accountants, when they prepare for, engage in, or carry out a transaction for a client concerning any of the following activities: buying and selling of real estate, managing of clients' money, securities, and other assets, managing a bank, savings, or securities account, organizing contributions for the creation, operation, and management of a legal person, and creating, operating, or managing a legal person or arrangement, or buying or selling of a business entity. Even religious bodies are accountable institutions.
So accountable institutions are the ones supposed to report.
Alert. Now, if they say suspicious and unusual transaction, it is not that you suspect. It's not a subjective decision. Okay. That, I know this person, so I didn't suspect. No, there's actually an objective test of whether you like or not, you are suspicious of. Under our regulations, basically 4. If the transaction is complex, you have to pay special attention to it. 2, it involves an unusually large sum of money. So you look at the person involved and you show that there's a track of money. If it has an unusual pattern, or it has no apparent or visible economic or lawful purpose, whether you like it or not, you must file a report called the Suspicious Transactions Report with the Financial Intelligence Center
of the Bank of Ghana. Now,
Bank of Ghana, when these laws were passed, issued a 96-page document. It's on their website. Dumbing down the details, condescending to particulars, an idiot-proof document to guide all of us. And you and I have seen the bankers have been hauled to Yoko. We have been there to defend them because they said we didn't suspect it. They said we don't care about your suspicion. The law says that once you saw XYZ, you should have alerted us. And so, what people sit in their homes now and you write a check, and then the bank will call you. So we are verifying the check. They are telling you half the story. They're probably reporting to Bank of Ghana because the Bank of Ghana's threshold is 20,000 cedis.
When you are late, they just go ahead and freeze it. Why don't they call you before?
Oh no. Well, if they are looking for you and they can't find you, they will not do that. They will not do the transaction. Okay. Else, they could fall foul of some of these rules. And Bank of Ghana has set a threshold of 20,000 cedis, unless they've amended what's on the website as I looked at this morning before coming here. 20,000 cedis. So all your transactions, guess what, guys? If the rules are working well, are being reported. So if the gentleman picks up my money, and I have engaged in those transactions before, in a lot of those transactions, he shall be reporting by now. When he picks us up, he should actually have a report. He might love me, but he has to file a report.
Okay.
The mode of transporting the money might also create a problem. Then the instructions I give, the minute it hits my account, transfer it to all those other places. Now, it appears he didn't do it, but the employer did it. That doesn't mean that the one who gave the money has done anything wrong. Because many of us are not aware of these rules. It's 96 pages, so maybe there's opportunity for Ghanaians to realize.
The question is the employer, the boss who apparently gave the approval, now turned and went and reported.
Because the approval is to do this. That doesn't mean that it is. Yes, if the client wants the money in the bank, we will go and pick it up.
Okay.
But whether I respect the client or not, I have a duty to report.
Because if I don't report,
you could lose your license. You're in trouble. You could go to jail for up to a year. So I love the client, but the client says come for money. I will go for it. But once it comes in, if it fits the definition of a suspicious or unusual transaction, I must file an STR.
Okay.
It's as simple as that. And so the STR was filed, not because they suspected that the king was up to anything wrong, but simply because the law says, make a report.
Should they suspect, taking into consideration the stature of who it is?
It doesn't matter. Actually, it makes it worse. There's now the concept of the politically exposed person, which is part of our law. People like Mohammed, Doc. Every transaction that you conduct is suspicious because you're a politically exposed person.
And also your family ones.
And the definition of politically exposed includes your family. So even if it was a £1 transaction, on account of the status of the chief, they are required to pay particular attention to it. Because, you see, the anti-money laundering regime is to stop dirty money from being laundered, from being cleaned and fed into the system. So drug money, etc., will be taken, maybe they'll buy real estate, buy houses, and sell after a short while. And so drug money has been converted into real estate money and it is fed into the system. So these laws are meant as a proactive step to check them from happening. It doesn't succeed all the time.
The question has been asked, it may be populist, but it's worth asking that we Africans or Ghanaians may be allowing these people to denigrate our important persons. If the Queen had wanted to deposit this money, how else would she have done it?
If the law in England, I'm not qualified, I'm on the law of England, but if the laws of England were to work,
sorry, Dr. You are created your analogy.
If the laws of England were to work the way I'm reading the laws in Ghana, not that we think that the Queen has stolen money, but for being a politically exposed person, I must file a report. I must pay particular attention to it. It doesn't mean the Queen has stolen money or that the Queen is engaged in terrorism.
Okay.
Simply because the person is politically exposed. If I may just read.
So should they be avoiding it, getting reported?
No, just know that you are going to report it anyway.
Okay.
It's as simple as that.
Right.
Just know that you are going to report it anyway. But if the transaction, and this is the key word, and note, the concept of being politically exposed is the largest lifting of the veil provision. In fact, for politically exposed persons, we even look at the companies that they are directors of. Okay. The law says you must do it. So it doesn't matter who. Once you are politically exposed, your transactions are double-checked. I'll give an example. We wanted legal advice for a Ghanaian citizen from England on a transaction. Once we gave the name, the law firm said, we need further details about the person. Why? The person is politically exposed. If we give the legal advice and something goes wrong, we could be held liable. So we want to know where the person banked last, when the person flew. I'm like, what? So we went to another law firm, and this time we said, we want advice on a no-name basis, on a hypothetical situation. The second law firm said, yeah, we'll give it to you. But if we gave you the advice with the name, it will be X amount of pounds.
Okay.
But if we gave it to you without the names, it will be X times this. Because there could be the likelihood of exposure, and we might be fined. So we will bill you with a fine, whether we pay it or not.
Okay.
So all over the world, because of the rules on bribery and corruption, for example, the British Bribery Act is extra jurisdictional. If I work for a British client in Ghana and I pay a bribe, I could be arrested on my next trip to London. And so the laws have begun to have cross-jurisdictional and effect. And so it does not really protect anybody. It doesn't mean that the depositor has done anything wrong.
Okay.
You can question the knowledge and etc. of the depositor, but many of us, in fact, I'm sure for a lot of people, they are hearing of this for the first time.
Right.
Many of us do not know
Right.
that for all of you sitting here, possibly your banks have been monitoring you for a very long time, and there are reports about you.
Let me hear what Kweku has to say on this.
So that's it. One last thing. So the gentleman might have had his own problems, and indeed, this might have gone unnoticed. But for the fact that the employer decided to terminate him because in not filing the STR, he also breached internal rules, and they were worried about issues about vicarious liability. Had the money gotten missing, what would have been it? So they terminated him. That might not have triggered it, but for the fact that they decided to challenge it. And in the course of that judicial hearing,
what's the point of the apology that the solicitors of the bank have rendered to the court for bringing,
I wish I understood it. The story itself, it seemed to me to be somebody sitting in court, hearing something and reporting on it. I can never give legal, I can never give legal analysis of somebody's what somebody says. But like I said, I don't understand English.
Okay, thank you.
Ghana.
Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Well, it's good listening to Ace first. I think he's done some demystification, giving us some legal perspectives that I consider quite useful. Because I've commented on this matter already. I'm getting a bit clear in my mind. But I've been wondering, and I'm not sure if that answer is out there. Was the money from Ghana to the UK, or the money was mobilized within the UK jurisdiction?
You don't have the answer, that's why you're asking. Or you
yes,
do have,
I don't have the answer.
I have asked him.
So we will be interrogating.
I've asked him. I've been told confidentially that it could be that the money was generated right in the UK.
Yes, then that's another picture. You see, because if it was from here, if it originated from here by flight and went there,
red flag,
I will have a little difficulty.
Why?
I would think it's untidy.
Why?
I would think that the best option would have been to transfer it through the banking system.
So what's the difference?
There's a limit on $10,000. Fiscal cash for travel. Right?
Yeah, but so through the banking here.
Does it apply to every Ghanaian?
Oh, aren't all people equal under the law, presumably? It's a rebuttable presumption.
We all don't hold diplomatic passports.
Yeah, but I think that's why the apology came. It's a completely irrelevant issue to raise about the issue of the diplomatic passport. Right. I'm pretending not to know that.
Okay, good.
Yes, I would have preferred a situation, if indeed, and these are all ifs, because it's a hypothesis I'm now interrogating, that if this huge sum of money was originating from within the Ghanaian jurisdiction, and considering the personality, I would have expected that it was handled by a bank to bank rather than it being physically carried. Like we carry $3 billion, dollars to Brazil, or Abacha Seguazo brought 5 million by flight. I would have preferred the banking system, but we don't have an answer to that question. Now let's look at the other option. The other option being that it might have been generated within the UK. And so then a banking official is called, the money is given to him to send to the bank. Here again, there's a little bit of a gray area where the money is then put in a taxi.
Yes, Uber.
I think he drove his first in his car, went home, put it in an Uber and went home.
Yeah, it's still untidy. You see, if things could be done.
But there's been an explanation to the effect that the bank doesn't have any contract with, as it were, bullion vans or whatever, to do that kind of business. So he did nothing wrong.
But all of these trigger the AML red flags.
That's what I mean.
All of these trigger it.
Yes, it's untidy. You know, and we are talking here of a great, you know, overlord. I didn't say king. Yeah, in our olden days, we had kings here. The paramountcies, they have even paramount chiefs under them.
Right.
So they have a certain structure. Is it the Dagombas have?
Yeah.
The Nairi, is it Mamprusi or whatever? Yes, the Yabunra, and they are all, if you like, kings, but overlords, I would want to call them. When it comes to that personality and their image, even the value of their stature for Ghana as a whole, I would prefer that transactions of this nature are not dealt with the way we are being told.
You think his managers failed him?
I think so.
But what if you were asked, do you know how much he needs to carry on him because of the entourage that he needs to do what he has to do?
I will still
do you
not
know his daily expenses?
No, I still will not do that. A little 350,000 pounds. Well, it's because I haven't seen some before, so maybe I think it's that big. But I wouldn't advise, with the benefit of hindsight, with all due respect. And look, he's one of the greatest personalities I respect. I interact with him. He's a friend, and he has a level of tolerance. You know, there's a story I told last Thursday on Metro. We had an encounter in South Africa, if you permit me, and it was to do with Mrs. Rawlins's prosecution. You know, and I wasn't alone. There were other journalists, and I was very hard making my case. He was cool, reacting to what I was saying. But one of his lieutenants, whose name I won't mention, one of his got so angry that how dare you journalists taking on a whole king, you know? And he became quite, butu-butu. What he did was to ask Ginabri, who was sitting by him, to leave and asked me to come and sit by him. And took a cool advice. So you see, I was disarmed completely. That is why I think those who are angry in the Ashanti region for some journalists raising the issue should cool down. They should emulate their, king.
As for the emotional outbursts, you should expect it.
No, it's very important we discourage that trend.
And let's get, even if this were in Ghana, you cannot say from what you've seen that he's done anything wrong.
Sure.
Right? Like I said, he called his banker.
Yes.
Okay. And that is what you do when you have your money.
Yes.
That, banker, come for it. How the banker decided to transport it and which report to file or not to file is not within his control.
I
And it is possible he knows about it, but he doesn't mind this being disclosed. That he's open with his transactions. Yes, I have banked this money. File all your AML reports. I don't care. It's not going to stop it. If they like, they should ask me where I got the money from. I'll justify it.
Right.
So I think that those, so some of the commentary as well that accuses him of crime, it's premature.
I agree.
It's unnecessary.
I agree.
From what I understand, he called his banker. What happened is a banker's responsibility.
I agree.
And unfortunately, it has brought the story that should not have happened.
Yes, I
if
agree.
the banker had followed their protocol.
The banker was to tell him that this amount of money, we cannot do this transaction this way.
Or even if we do it, we have to report it. He could say, very well, go ahead and report it. I have nothing to hide.
I would
and this banker holds the view that he couldn't look at Otumfuo and say any such thing to him.
Then he doesn't deserve to be a banker. Look, when it comes to professional services, you and I, the professions, you are held to what they call standards of disinterested service.
Thank you.
At any time where you begin to think that your emotions or other considerations are clouding your independent thought, you are in a conflict of interest situation.
All right.
But if you also check...
let's go
so you must stop.
Let's go finish and let's have the two
I
of you.
believe strongly with the benefit of hindsight, the great man will not do this again. He won't handle it with this mode of operations.
Okay.
That's my feeling. Otherwise, you see, needless
Right.
speculations,
Yes,
and imputations and things.
Yes,
Yeah.
Doc, what do you say? But like I was saying to is, as for the emotions and when it comes to the Sikeja, please, irrespective of how wrong you may have really seen that it is wrong, you don't dare. I have my own personal experience, which I've shared with you before.
Kweku tackled the area of the mood, and I want to stick to the angle of the chief, the king himself, his involvement, and I clearly think that looking at the anti-money laundering and the terrorist financing directive, or now I hear from June, is now a law in the UK. Since 2007, it's only been a directive. It is a bit vague in some areas, allowing their staff to use discretionary measures. Now, if you look at the due diligences, they have CDD, that is the customer due diligence. They have the simple due diligence, and they have the enhanced one. Now, if you really look at the customer one, there again comes high level of discretionary stuff. Your customer, source of wealth, is he from a country that is blacklisted? He is not. And then if you ask yourself those questions, it allows you to take a certain decision.
You're right.
But then you can also seek approval from the senior most person. Now, in the case of this, after I understand, is the second senior most. So the most senior person is the Mr. Mensah, the CEO, who is believed to have authorized it. Now the question here is that, why did he authorize it? Did he authorize and have a flag in the internal system, flagging it before he saw the need for him to have reported it to the anti-crime agency? Because I hear they reported to the National Crime Agency. Now the question here is that, if in UK, the National Crime Agency did not call the king, I'm telling you, these people know that this man has done.
Absolutely.
He's done no wrong.
So that's
in the UK,
we should distinguish
they report you to the National Crime Agency
instantly.
And they did not invite you. A person who owns over $5 million mansion in their area, the transaction, he's done previous transactions like this before. So probably there's a certain trend. They did not touch him till date.
No, but some try to make a difference. The transaction you refer to would have been to the trust fund. You know, he's got the education trust fund. And
that is the assumption.
People are making a lot of assumptions.
It's assumption. But I'm talking about the National Crime Agency will not spare you. It doesn't matter if you are the king of. They will come for you. Even presidents in Africa, they go for them. They will go for him.
Right.
So if after 2 years they have no problems
You lived
with
in
him,
the UK, right?
I have schooled,
Right.
I have schooled in Leeds and then Oxford and Co. So if they have not come for him, then it's so clear that people should be careful.
That the king has done nothing wrong.
He's done nothing wrong.
Right.
Now, in the case of, I hear, you know, you are the lawyers, but I hear the judge on the Tuesday or the Monday hearing shook the head when the bank said that we initially said the money came from Saka something company and it was shady, but it is no more shady. We initially said the passport was expired, it's no more expired. Issues with credibility, and I think the bank must be careful. If they are listed,
and the reporter from ABN Television, where the show is also being watched, said the bank's solicitors did this for 4 different times, right there in that court, rendering the apology.
You see, so it shouldn't. I hope it doesn't affect the confidence of their shareholders. Please, this case should stop somewhere. I mean, because you see, yes, clearly should stop somewhere. If looking at the trajectory, for me, if they cannot hold Otumfuo accountable, then it means that the crime agency, because you see, if you look at their law, the offense, there's also an offense here. In case you, the staff, you aid and abet that, according to the anti-money law in the UK, it's an offense. And then you are liable to 2 years imprisonment. For 2 years now, the guy is working free. Right. So the UK agencies don't have a problem. If they don't have a problem with the individual, then for me, it should get to a point that it fits into the speculation that there's a certain internal problem between him and his boss. And his boss is trying to
I think you must distinguish, you must make some distinctions.
Yes.
Look,
30 seconds.
From what is showing, the UK hasn't shown that they are interested in pursuing the king at all.
Yes.
At all.
He called his banker and gave his money to the banker.
Yeah.
What the banker did with it was another issue.
Yeah.
It is possible that Arthur himself hasn't committed a crime. It's possible. In fact, the red flag was raised anyway, which would have been raised, probably has been raised in respect of the king before, but didn't lead to anything. Right. Would have been raised anyway. What I call the red flag would have been filed. It's filed, nobody cares. The crime agency doesn't care. What is really an issue here is a labor issue, which is not criminal law. You might not have breached the law, but it's an employment issue. Whether or not he breached the internal rules, so they decided to fire him.
The case is before the
tribunal now. Right. So we got to distinguish between all of it. He might not have broken the law. It's the internal rules. He might win the case. Who knows? So we need to make those distinctions very clearly and let the law take its course. Right. It's possible he's right.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear what Mama Yaga has to say. And you may also want to pay attention to the other aspect people raise that, look, yes, the money was deposited, but what happened to it right after it was deposited was heading to Jersey. What does that suggest also? But before you come in, Yaopong sends this, and he's often on this show. He says that, good morning, I'm enjoying the discussions. Insurance companies get away with non-payment of liabilities because claims are not made on them by victims. Victims don't sue because they are poor and sometimes don't even know how to reach lawyers. If this disaster had happened elsewhere, solicitors would be advertising. Hey, you can't do that in Ghana, you know. Would be advertising, no pay, no claim, no gain. Can a lawyer dare do that in Ghana? Okay, that's a question you are really asking. Well, they say they are looking at the laws once again. So maybe soon we may be able to sort of quote unquote advertise. Yes.
I think that in terms of the law, a lot has been said already. But there are two issues here. One has to do with a labor issue involving somebody in the UK, and that is entirely governed by UK law. And as my senior has indicated, given that we are not experts in UK law, probably will be better to wait and see how the case proceeds and how it is resolved by the courts there. However, I think that the idea of a Ghanaian king, given what is perceived by our standards here to be a substantial amount of money to a banker to go and deposit in an account, perhaps is what is exciting Ghanaians. And so people are talking about it. I take a position that first and foremost, we don't have any information regarding the source of the money. There's nothing to show that the money was sent from Ghana. It's possible that the money was raised in the UK. And so at this stage, to engage in any discussion in relation to the conduct of the king will be mere speculation because you don't have any evidence. He hasn't spoken about the source of the money. The issue about calling relation manager and then giving the relationship manager money, it is normal here. I mean, I have hardly any money in my account, but I have a relationship manager who calls me. Yes, who calls me all the time. Anytime there's a small transaction, in fact, sometimes $1,000 transaction, and I have calls from my relationship manager, and she just tells me that, sir, we're supposed to report all these, transactions. Where is the $1,000 from, and etc. You don't have an income source that is in dollars, so that's why we have to ask, and that kind of thing. So you invite them to your office to give them money. They will come. They will come and then take it to make things easy for you. That's the whole idea. Right. These days, banking, as Mr. Ace has indicated, has changed. So I think that at this stage, we will be better advised to be careful about our comments regarding the king and the deposit. Okay. And if we're interested, we can discuss. We can discuss the banker and what are the regulations there. That's a good note to draw the curtains on the show. But I'm supposed to execute this before I sign off. It says that you stay tuned to Joy 99.7 FM because immediately after Newsfile, Nathaniel Atto brings you the Joy Sports Link, an exclusive interview with the undefeated pair of Bokum Banku and his challenger, Basti Samer, who fight next Saturday at the Bokum Boxing Arena. It's the biggest fight of the year, and the Joy Sports Link will give you the biggest build-up to that. Okay, so thank you very much, and my guests have been Abdul Malik Kweku Bako, editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Ace Ankuma, he's a lawyer and worries government about the motorway. Mahama Ayarga is a lawyer and member of Parliament, Boko Central. Dr. Nana Ayu Efriye, used to hear him a lot. These days, you have to tune to Parliament to hear him. MP Efijasi Asokori and Vice Chairman Health Committee of Parliament. On the phone, we spoke to Hassan Tampuli, Chief Executive Officer, the National Petroleum Authority. I'm Samson Ladia Yanini. My outfit, as always, is supplied by Latida. And A says this is corruption because I get it every week.